Now, before I start this, I would like to make it clear that even though I enjoyed this game quite a lot actually, a lot of harsh criticisms will be made. Not from hate, but more from love. Sometimes the things we hold dear must be looked at with a critical eye for the greater good. It's the year 2012 and geez, has it been so? And Ubisoft Montreal reveals their next big project. It's a game called Watch Dogs, and it was set to be the bread and butter of next generation gaming. It used the Disrupt engine with jaw-dropping graphics, and everyone was making a buzz about it back in the day. It received 82 awards just from the trailers alone. Many went as far as to predict that it was going to be on par with GTA and even surpass it. The idea of a vigilante hacking his way through a crime-filled city was incredible. The idea of hacking existed in the gaming industry, however, it wasn't tackled with this huge level of ambition. Ubisoft, being the devil everyone knows, announced a film adaptation to cash in on the hype before the game even released. It was unthinkable. This implied Watch Dogs meant business, and its release was leaving everyone on the edge of their seats. Now, for nearly 7 years, I wanted to revisit this game to see if the criticisms of the past decade do justice to the game. Did it live up to the hype? And did Ubisoft deliver on a true next-generation experience? It will remain to be seen. Now, without delay, let's start this review of Watch Dogs. The franchise starts with the real-life Northeast blackout of 2003, but with a twist. The person responsible for the blackout was an ex-CTOS engineer called Raymond Kenny, who accidentally killed 11 people. Bloom Corporation took this opportunity to sell its CTOS, also known as Central Operating System, using fear across the country with a promise to keep Americans safe with surveillance systems and predictive algorithms. Or so it seems. This is an amazing setup for the franchise and has a lot of potential. It's based on a real-life event that is often overlooked by the public. It's enough to make it unique while at the same time being believable and relevant in today's world. It sets a dark tone which the game is consistent with, how security is pushed through fear, which made a scary parallel to our real world. It's brilliant, and the tagline, "Everything is connected," fits perfectly. CTOS knows everything from what you eat, who you talk to, your strengths and weaknesses, and it can even predict patterns and tell what you're going to do. After all, with that much control, it's inevitable that government and companies will use it to their advantage. However, the main story of the game and its structure isn't as brilliant and it's a bit unfocused. More on that later. The main story is divided into 5 long acts. First, we start with the prologue, where we meet Aiden Pearce, a hacker Batman ripoff with Irish descent. In 2012, he, along with Damien Branks, hacked into the Merlot Hotel to steal money, but something that is barely explained happens. Aiden aborts the mission to escape the scenario, but unfortunately they don't even escape and fixers are sent to hunt them down in the process. Aiden is shot while driving, and shortly after his niece Lena Pierce is killed. It is now Aiden's job to find and hold responsible the people who caused her death, basically going on a revenge rampage. It boggles my mind to this day that Ubisoft chose a revenge story for a game about government surveillance and spying algorithms. Revenge stories aren't bad, but it's beating a dead horse at this point, and it's at odds with the lore established in the beginning. Throughout the story, the situation doesn't get any better. It questionably descends into a hostage situation. For starters, Damien kidnaps Nikki Pierce and Aiden must rescue her by finding the data from a corrupted video number lot. That's it. It's a boring and confusing premise, and the damsel in distress plot point doesn't help its story a bit. That being said, I would do everyone a favor when I say that the best part of the story are the side characters and the atmosphere, which unfortunately don't receive much attention. One of the characters, Clara Lille, is a French-Canadian girl who is a member of the mysterious activist group called DedSec, founded by Raymond Kenney shortly after the blackout. She is skilled beyond belief and even gives Aiden exclusive hacks from DedSec, which makes her an awesome companion to Aiden. You even meet another character named Tyrone Bedbug Hayes.
Come on, Grandma.
Bedbug doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah, it does. It means I'm a player.
What?
A bed bug can get into any lady's bed.
That's disgusting. No, I raised you better than that.
Aiden helps him prove himself in order to manipulate him to get into Rossi Freeman to steal the data that Damien wants. Oddly enough, they get along really well.
You got family?
Yeah.
Kids?
No. You?
Probably. Oh, shit, man. Don't make me laugh.
Yeah. That could be bad.
You also meet the fixer Jordy Shin, a weirdly optimistic, eccentric lunatic, which contrasts well with Aiden's self-centered personality. He's simply brilliant. I love him.
Jordy, who are they?
Well, they live here.
What happened?
Well, security in these buildings is pretty tight. So people like this feel nice and secure living way up here. I mean, these people just had a simple chain lock on their door. I guess they want to have a good look at the pizza guy before they open it all the way.
All right, fine, sure. So about this problem.
Well, that's why I brought the bolt cutters. He opens the door this much, there's a chain right there, I slip him in and snip, and guess what? It's not the pizza guy.
Jordy, the problem, let's deal with it.
Speaking of which, Aiden's personality was apparently inspired by Walter White from Breaking Bad. I don't like Aiden. He can sometimes be an ass. I mean, he constantly drags innocent people into his problems and ends up ruining his sister's life. He's still a badass though, and can be really intimidating with his psychological intimidation. He's not a terrible character. He can come as decent at best, just not that interesting. My personal favorite character has to be Raymond Kenney, aka T-Bone, a former disgruntled Bloom engineer which parted ways with the company after he discovered the dangers of the system he created himself, along with Tobias Fruwer. He caused 2003 blackout to send a message about the threat of CTOS and big corporations pose. A message that fell on deaf ears.
The introductions are out of the way.
Listen to me, pal. I'm warning you. You being here puts me on the goddamn map.
I have some information.
Well, ain't you special?
The problem is, I can't decrypt it, so I came to the source.
Shit. Then you have put me on the goddamn...
The 11 deaths from the blackout are still consuming him. He has an enormous amount of depth, which makes me wonder why he wasn't the main character for the main story. It still leaves me confused. Nevertheless, these are all interesting characters, even on their own, with a great voice acting that makes watching these characters interact a joy to watch. However, it leaves a lot of interesting features, especially when you realize these characters don't get a lot of screen time and some are even killed off before you can blink. Something the story miraculously accomplishes with success is the atmosphere. Good God, it's excellent, and it's emphasized by a criminally underrated soundtrack. The soundtracks were composed by the incredible Brian Ritzel, and what a magnificent work of art. My personal favorite is The Bunker. After confronting an ex-Bloom engineer, Tobias Fruwer, you gain access to an island that has a CTO station that's been abandoned for years. In what can be described, in Clara's words, a legend. This beauty plays along with it. overreacting with the soundtrack, but it's pretty remarkable considering the source material. It grabs my emotions in a way that reminds me of games like Crash Bandicoot or Donkey Kong Country, which they also emphasize a lot on using the atmosphere to its favor. Very few games can replicate this feeling of immersion with their music, and Watch Dogs deserves a 10 in that department. This also applies to the city of Chicago during autumn, and boy, what a world it is. While GTA tries to go for a more unique interpretation of an open world and do its own thing, Ubisoft plays it safe with a one-to-one recreation of Chicago. This doesn't mean one is objectively better than the other, they're just different. The North thrives with a beautiful metropolis, expensive cars, trains, and tall buildings, while the Southwest is a low-income area with old rusted cars, gangs, and working-class citizens. There is a huge apartment complex called Rossi Fremont, which is plagued by social-economical issues. My favorite is Pawnee, which is the most unique of all the counties. The countryside of Chicago is filled with beautiful vistas, lakes, and gorgeous sunlight beaming through orange autumn trees. We all know of the infamous downgrade, and it's a shame that it didn't match the beauty of the E3 trailers. I'd say it holds up really well though. Ubisoft to this day shamefully denies it ever happened. They're the kid that denies eating the cookie despite having crumbs on his face. It disappointed players, and with good reason. Unfortunately, the final product didn't match the E3 version. Even so, the game looks amazing, especially when rainy at windy nights or in sunsets and sunrises in forest areas. The world feels very alive despite the grim autumn Chicago setting. While exploring, it's immediately noticeable the huge amount of control Bloom has on the people of Chicago. From cameras to smartphones, Big Brother's always watching everything. With this enormous amount of control has, it's no surprise hackers and organized crime groups use it to their advantage. Aiden himself is no stranger to this, for he can hack almost everything and everyone to see their dirty secrets. It can be fun snooping around people's phones, scanning for money on bank accounts, only to see their questionable descriptions. You can even access phone calls and conversations, and some of them can even lead to rewards or most of the game's side missions. Occasionally, you can find some pretty funny interactions. You almost have no interactions with NPCs in the open world whatsoever, but the game makes up for it with these fun quirks on the people of Chicago. Aiden must hack and fight his way through Chicago's crime mob. This includes Bloom Corporation, Chicago South Club, and the Black Viceroys to find the culprits behind his niece's death. And you'll unlock most of the game's abilities and content through CTOS towers scattered through the land, and oh god. The classic Ubisoft towers. I personally never liked these blasted towers of hell. They feel like chores since they're already marked for you in the game map. Games like Zelda Breath of the Wild have towers, sure, but at least there's some fun to be had, because you need to go through the effort of fighting surrounding enemies and searching for the damn thing. You see, the point of these towers is adding a challenge, which is not really the tower itself, more like the journey to get to the tower. However, in Watch Dogs, the tower is the challenge. You simply walk in, solve some light puzzles, and activate it, and in some cases you need to hack a control box with a minigame that, while very simple, can become a slow agony and can drag on for minutes at a time. For the immersion to break, I think the game would have been better off without it due to how counterintuitive it is to the open world design of the game. Finishing these towers unlock audio logs, privacy invasions, QR codes, and more. The audio logs and privacy invasions give some interesting insight into the game's world, like DeadSec's QR codes. These have audios that creepily correlate to how careless people are online in the real world. While not all of them are worth the journey, doing at least half of these can be fun. While progressing through the story, you are introduced to the meat and potatoes of the game, hacking/combat. This is by far the best thing the game has to offer. You see, most people would think Watch Dogs is only about hacking, which is mostly true to an extent. However, you soon start to realize that it isn't the case. Instead, you have a solid third-person shooter that revolves around hacking. It can be really entertaining the way you stick the walls and hack the environment to your advantage, and against the opponents, the cover can be really sticky and snappy. You can quickly change your vantage point with the press of a button, which makes it my favorite type of cover in a third-person shooter ever. It has this satisfying flow to it that, in my opinion, hasn't been replicated with success in any third-person shooter. The amount of wild moves you can pull off are astonishing. Hacking, while superficial, adds a great amount of depth to an otherwise satisfying combat system. It works to use the environment to your advantage rather than a realistic interpretation of hacking seen in games like Deus Ex. Most hacks need to be crafted, and yes, it has the option to craft. It's not a big deal, and since it's a game released around 2014, you know damn well it was mandatory to replicate Minecraft's bloody crafting. There's a skill tree, and you level up by completing the story and farming headshots like a maniac, which has a great progression that comes naturally to the player, like a dumbed down version of the Skyrim level up system. But it isn't anything we haven't seen before. As hacking abilities are unlocked, you can control machines, enemy phones, lifts, override electrical transformers, interrupt enemy communications, and use cameras. It's hilarious hacking an enemy's grenade only for him to mumble around and say some inspiring words.
Watch it! Tell my wife! Tell my wife! Tell her I was fucking her sister!
It's really satisfying. You can even combine other hacks like opening a gap in a bridge and causing a blackout so that your pursuers won't be able to lower it. The blackout is by far my favorite hack in the game. When you activate it, a terrifying, powerful sound consumes the city. You can even use this to distract enemies and silently take them down.
Don't see shit! I'll look over there.
You can even hack dogs. Just kidding. Ironically, there aren't any dogs in Watch Dogs. Sad. These are among the best test of skills in the game. Also, gang hideouts function as playgrounds to test your hacking and shooting skills. They are again really good environmental puzzles. You can enter guns blazing like a madman, or stealth your way taking down enemies with your wacky stick and silence guns like the fox that Aiden is. This is an excellent feature, and it's good they give freedom of choice to the player. Precisely, it encourages experimentation, and it works most of the time. Even the enemies have variations. The sniper class carefully scout the area from above to keep you trapped. The strongest is the enforcer, this huge lad with the armor that can't be taken down with melee. They all complement each other, making the fights dynamic and forces you to use other alternatives. In addition, this variety and structure works most of the time because in the main story, these gang hideouts are a mess. You are either forced to empty your cartridges like Rambo, or forced to lose if you break your cover in stealth missions. You don't die, which would make sense. Instead, you simply lose? And it can be incredibly frustrating starting in the same level over and over again. Levels like Pit of Paranoia stick out like a sore thumb due to this issue. It really hurts the action and flow of the combat due to how scripted it all feels, and slows it to a snail's pace. And along these stealth mandatory missions comes the Ubisoft tailing missions everyone loves. And these, while not terrible the first time, the second, third, fourth time you do these, it gets old very quickly. There's only a few on story mode, but the side content makes up a huge part of these chases. It can be fatiguing following cars for the 20th time. Fortunately, that's not all the game has to offer. Surprisingly, there's even more content. Fixer contracts can range from car deliveries, distracting the cops, or racing. Police chases are challenging and they hang around for a while. This is where you use hacking while driving most of the time. In these chases, you hack traffic lights, bridges, and steam pipes to stop the cops in their tracks. The helicopter stalks you and snipes your car while their cars try to spin you away from the road. In the mission Backseat Driver, you are teached a unique car translation of stealth. You hide your car in back alleys as the cops shine their lanterns on you. One fatal flaw ruins these chases though. Chicago Police doesn't have a naval fleet. This means that if you escape by boat, you won! Just like that! With zero effort, the helicopter magically loses sight of the player and leaves, and this alone makes Chicago Police one of the best and weakest chases in a video game. It's painfully unbalanced, which sadly throws the fun aggressive street encounters into the garbage bin. Adding a naval fleet would have made a big difference. Even though the AI can still be wonky, it would have at least fixed a lot of the unbalancing issues. And finally, the criminal convoys, in which you receive an enemy route and you choose how you tackle the challenge. These offer really fun close quarter combat in the streets, and you need to manage your distance carefully when fighting in these sections. Some even require you to neutralize the opponent instead of killing him, which forces you to slowly circle your way around inside enemy defenses. Now, the problem with these challenges is that they don't evolve. It's all copied and pasted to artificially inflate the game's content. As much as I love the combat, there's one huge flaw that reveals itself once you start completing these copied missions. Weapon balancing. Yeah, that isn't the game's specialty. It's extremely lazy, and having 10 assault rifles, grenade launchers, and 2 sniper rifles at the same time without any consequence really makes the experience boring. Moreover, with all those weapons and adding infinite ammo and slow motion mode makes the game lack any depth, and even on the hardest difficulty the game becomes a breeze. It can be argued that a broader arsenal of weapons encourages experimentation, but the reality is that the majority of the players will just stick to the stronger weapons. There's even a reputation system that goes up when you complete some of these missions, but it's so superficial. I'm not exaggerating. Its effect on the game is non-existent. Unlike the karma system from Infamous, which actually has an effect on the outcome of the story, this one just exists for the sake of it. While completing the game's content, you may encounter online invasions. As you panic and scramble trying to find out what the hell's going on, fixers sent by Bloom will steal your data. This opens the door to the online part of the game, and what a joy it is to play. You do car races which has a big amount of resistance on the ground. Plus, you can give invaders a taste of their own medicine by invading your match and stealing back your data. The best one is a PvP deathmatch where you hold on to a file and you must decrypt it, while at the same time fighting off hacker foes as they blaze you with bullets and IEDs. It has options for combat, hacking, and car driving, and these features make the online experience thrive beautifully. It's dynamic, heart-pounding, and challenging, mixing all skills in a multi-layered deathmatch. During the game's development, that was made for mobile devices, but it was originally intended to be used as a weapon against the console player. where the mobile user activated roadblockers and police units but was ultimately scrapped for unknown reasons. But it doesn't end there, because there's even more content to discuss. While walking around the city, you will see parkour races which aren't that exciting since Aiden is so stiff when doing parkour, if you call holding the circle button parkour. And chess? I wish I was joking on that one. Yeah, I don't understand why this is in the game, but I'm not complaining, so there it is. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, I guess. While you leave from the chessboard in tranquility, you will come across these mysterious men in black, and they offer digital trips. You would think he sells acid trips, and you are correct. Well, instead they're digital acid trips. I would advise you not to question it. These are minigames that transport you into another mysterious world. The first of which is psychedelic. And what an acid trip this is. You bounce from flower to flower like a crackhead in order to get points. Honestly, this one isn't really that interesting. It's basically the bargain bin version of Flappy Bird. Not much to say about it. Spider Tank is amazing. You take control of a literal spider tank and you terrorize the city, climbing onto the walls like a mega Spider-Man and not the friendly neighborhood type. You shoot cops and civilians with bombs and a minigun to gather energy, destroy towers to continue your rampage. What more can you ask for? It's fun for what it is, and despite being short in length, I had a good time with this one. Madness is another great minigame, which focuses on driving as fast as humanly possible while at the same time running over demons to make points. This is where the tight car physics shine at its best. It's a fun time, especially in this minigame which has serious consequences when failing to stay on the road. Quite the contrary actually, it encourages it. So kudos to this one, it's my second favorite. In addition, the final minigame of the bunch is Alone, a subtle masterpiece. It's a tightly constructed stealth minigame where you travel through an empty Chicago brimming with guards who have cameras as heads. It has a satisfying progression in which you liberate the city from Broom's control and battle your inner thoughts. You are really underpowered during this mode, which makes you feel powerless. It helps let the player know that they are not in control in this alternate reality. It gives this motivation to fight against these CTOS robots, or in better words, run from them, because these guys are fast and they can kill you very quickly. Once the map is liberated from Bloom's control, you immediately let out a sigh of relief. And once again, I must point out the music is phenomenal. You feel so much relief as the anxiety that was holding Aiden and the player down is lifted. Who would say you could find a decent game by talking to a drug dealer in black? With all of this content, I asked myself, was this enough to turn around things for the better? While T-Bone decrypts the data from the Merlot Hotel, Damien gains control of the CTOS and has full control of the city. It is now Aiden's job to stop Damien and end his tyranny once and for all. All the hacks you master in the story and online are now put to the test with a dramatic final fight against Damien and the CTOS. The delightful song, "Sometimes You Still Lose," plays in the background as you flee the cops in their greatest numbers, yet this time the traffic lights you once used in street fights are now flipped against you. Street blockers activate to sabotage your progress, and the game map constantly bugs to distract you. It's a challenging test of strength, and despite the mediocre plot, the final battle is well worth the wait. Before Aiden can neutralize Damien, DedSec breaks in the system to bargain for the control of the CTOS. he decides to pass the chance. It's implied that passing this chance will have some sort of relevance in future installments, especially with DedSec. Only time will tell. The exploit T-Bone once used to shut down the Northeast American continent in 2003 is used by Aiden in a breathtaking blackout that shuts down the entirety of Chicago and CTOS system. The city descends into chaos and Aiden reaches the only place with electricity, the lighthouse in the distance where he confronts Damon in the final moments.
I don't know what Damien wanted in those final moments. Death, I suppose. I thought I could fix the little girl's death, but instead it led to all of this. Exposed lies, corrupted kings, a broken city. And me, changed man. I don't look back anymore. I don't regret. I look forward. Everything is connected, and I'll use that to expose, to protect, and if necessary, to punish.
And that is Watch Dogs, an ambitious game that sadly lost its focus, which fills me with disappointment and praise at the same time. A game I love and despise. It constantly jumps in quality when it's at its best. I can see the good shining beautifully. At its worst, it can drop extremely low, and it's sad to see this game being bashed by critics. But it's also an understandable complaint. Ubisoft's incompetence and unoriginality gave us this result. A game with wasted potential and uninteresting story, but great characters that keep it afloat. The broken promises hurt the franchise before they even set foot in the industry, almost as if it started with its left foot. And the huge amount of side content wasn't enough to keep this boat going. The story doesn't end there though. Despite the game's mixed response, it performed really well to satisfy Ubisoft's greed. As the credits start to roll, I came to the realization like being hit with a brick and thought, with over 10 million units sold, the inevitable season pass and sequel was well underway. It was only a matter of time. Something tells me what comes next will be an unexpected but well worth surprise. Join me next time to see where this ship sails.
Thanks to you, CTOS Network has had a successful year. With CTOS Chicago setting the standard, we're proud to announce an expansion into other major cities across the country and around the world. There's no better way to bring the city right to your doorstep. Look for CTOS 2.0 in the new year. CTOS,